All right, perfect. It's 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday. No, Thursday. Oh my God, where has the week gone by? All right, welcome everyone to the KoreSummit, webinar series 2021, and it's going to be pretty fun today. We have some great speakers. First of all, I'm just going to give everybody the format so everybody knows how this is done and you can follow us. First of all, we're going to have the speakers introduce the panelists, introduce themselves a little bit so you get to know who they are. We're going to have a bit of a Q&A, no PowerPoint presentation, none of that. We're here to talk with you, to give you real life examples to help you with the topic today, which is what do you need, to prepare for a regulation CF, regulation crowdfunding. And so this is important. So we'll do 45 minutes. And then of course we will go into the next phase, which is 15 minutes of Q&A that gives you an opportunity, put up your hand, click the button and ask the panelists any questions, and we will be more than happy to answer for you. For all those in attendance today, you will be able to get a copy of our book, Equity Crowdfunding 101, which will be available for you. That gives you all this coverage. But let's get started this morning. Thank you again. And it is on YouTube Live as well. And obviously all of this will be available all over the web. So it is being recorded for everyone's pleasure. So let's get started with the introduction of our thought leader panelists today. So Jonathan, it's great. It's great to connect with you and meet with you. There you go. So let's start with you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for having me, and I look forward to hopefully providing some information. My name's Jonathan. I'm the compliance manager for WonderFund. WonderFund is a regulation crowdfunding portal out of Cincinnati, Ohio. We launched in 2017, so we're approaching our third year of doing crowdfunding here. And our focus really has been kind of what we're calling the underserved markets. So, the Midwest predominantly in terms of geography, and into the Southeast, but especially minority groups like LGBTQ, Latinx, African American, female-led businesses. So we've done, I think we're we're about to launch our 31st or 32nd campaign. So we've worked with just over 30 businesses right now to get their crowdfunding campaigns up and going.
Well, that's fantastic. We'll definitely be coming back to you with more questions. Jonathan, and obviously Julian, my colleague.
Yeah, thank you, Oscar, and thanks, Jonathan, as well for joining us too. I am the Chief Revenue Officer for KoreConnex, and it's been a pleasure to obviously join this team. We're very excited. We've got lots in store, obviously, for our revenue growth of our own at KoreConnex, but more importantly for today is learning a little bit more about the regulations and how they apply, and sharing some thoughts and as well as questions. My background, I come from the banking industry, over 10 years of my first decade of my career in banking. The second decade was at various fintech firms. Most recently, one of which I was very proud to be at was a startup in the AI and ML machine learning industry. And there I was leading head of sales for Canada and helped that company achieve an exit as well of nearly $500 million. So hoping to recreate that magic here with KoreConnex. Thanks for having me.
Okay, unexpected, but okay, let's get started. So let's put the format in perspective.
Sure.
For all of those who have not attended any of our core summits at KoreConnex, we have a very strong philosophy in education, no self-promotion. So I do apologize if it did seem that way. It wasn't intended. Julian is new to the team, so I always try to make sure that for you, the attendees that are, Jonathan's taking the time, we're all taking the time because we want to help you. We truly do. Outside of whatever else we're doing, the Jobs Act was created for you. So I'm going to give you kind of a brief overview of that, and we're going to dive in, because having somebody from the compliance side is really good at this stage of the game, because quite often what you hear about regulation CF, and you've seen this, Jonathan, I'm sure, is that, oh, it's so easy. You just go there and fill out the form and away you go. So let's start with a high level. So the Jobs Act was created in a way to help early stage companies or any stage companies. It wasn't just for startups, and it wasn't just for any particular technology. It could be anything, A to Z, as Jonathan alluded to. There are different spectrums of it. So, but in order to take advantage of these regulations, that's why we're going to talk today, is that you need to follow. What are the things, prerequisites that you need to follow? And so the first one, obviously, I'm going to get at is, the where can you raise the capital? So that's the stage one, and then we'll dig in because that will help you. So stage one is that the only place where you can raise a RegCF capital is on a registered funding portal, like what Jonathan's going to talk about, or working with a registered FINRA broker dealer. So this is the new addition to this ecosystem that is going to help everyone. There are multiple choices. So either one, it doesn't matter. You still need to prepare. So let's hear it from a funding portal first, just high level, well, not high level, Jonathan. I mean, in detail, what is it outside of the sector, but more the prerequisite compliance elements that people often just go, oh yeah, I just got to get that compliance stuff and, and I'm in. Let's dig into that.
Okay, yeah. So I think, and maybe we'll touch on it later, the types of companies that are ready to raise money. But if you are someone who is ready to launch a crowdfunding campaign, some of the hurdles that we run into is, first off, your internal legal documents. And so one of the things that we see a lot of is when you're raising money through crowdfunding, it's an investment. And so you're technically selling a security. It's an unregistered security, and so that's why you do not need to go through the SEC for it, but you still need to provide notice, and you still need to make sure that those securities are sold in a way that's compliant, not only with securities laws, but also within your internal policies. So we see a lot of companies that come to us and say, we'd like to raise $200,000, how do we go? And the first thing I ask for is, can I see your operating documents so I can understand what your cap table and everything looks like? Because it's important that you are classifying your shares in terms of what you want to maintain for you as a founder and owner, and then what you're willing to give up to maybe preferred investors or common shares. And all that needs to be detailed in your documents, primarily because hopefully your goal is to exit at some point. And if those ducks aren't in a line from the very beginning, you're going to have huge issues down the line when you're looking for $5 to $10 million investments. And so that's one of the big things is operating documents.
Jonathan, that's a great point. Can I just, you touched on something that, we often, like, you go through all the elements, like you're starting, and I'm glad you're starting from the point of following your Form C and what are the points, and thank you for that. But one area that I think people here need to hear, the whole thing about the cap table. A lot of people don't, I don't need to worry about that because it is so imperative, right? You're noticing that if people don't properly plan for that, understand what their legal structure is, it will delay you getting to become listed on a funding portal or even, or anybody working with you. So what are the things that you're noticing or that you've seen that could be kind of a guidance to companies regarding just the simple component of the cap table?
Yeah, so, fortunately, a lot of companies that do crowdfunding are new, and so they don't necessarily have a cap table beyond, there's two of us, and so we're 50% owners. And so that's great. But the two things you really need to consider is, one, if that is you, if you're a new company, and so technically you're a solo owner, or maybe there's only 2 or 3 of you on the team, you still need to define the class of shares that you own and what you're willing to offer in an investment opportunity. And the reason being is down the line, because if crowdfunding, you're going to get, a couple, tens to maybe hundreds of investors, and those investors are going to have rights, and you need to define those rights on your cap table before you can even make an offering. But the second one is, we had one company who came to us and wanted to raise money, and I asked for their cap table, and they had, listed 3 names of the greater than 10% owners, and then there was a couple hundred other, just minor owner. And we could not launch their campaign because we need to know who those minor owners are, because they have rights and we need to make sure that their rights are defined. And if you aren't managing your cap table properly, especially not just before the launch, which can delay the launch if you haven't identified what classes you're willing to offer, but after the launch, you have legal obligations to all of those people who've invested in your company. And if you're not managing that properly, not only does that, not bode well for future rounds of capital raises for you, but it opens up to legal issues as well. Because if you do something that's not within the rights of those investors, and they come back and say, hey, you said these were our rights, but you're not doing it this way. Well, now you have legal obligations that you're in trouble with.
It's funny. In every one of the sessions we've done over in time, the cap table, oh yeah, you need a cap table. Let's go to the next subject matter. But it is so critical that companies understand why it's so important, not only for what you're doing now and ongoing. And obviously it encompasses everything. It kind of tells you how much preparation a company needs to do. So one of the things that, I'll add this tidbit in is that I often find it that when people think of crowdfunding, oh, I don't need to do anything. It's like Kickstarter. I just put my stuff out there but it's still, you're raising capital from the crowd, from people. This is people's money. You have a fiduciary duty to that. So whether you're just starting off, that doesn't mean you get a pass for not learning or you need to learn. So the cap table is one of it. And I call this the corporate bucket, right? The corporate items that you need, the cap table being one critical item. Obviously, Julian, you and I, we deal with a lot of companies. They come to us. What do I need? What do I need in order to get prepared? And obviously, we give them the checklist of all these items. And Jonathan will go even deeper. But obviously, what are the things the cap table from the corporate side that this company need in order to prepare properly for a RegCF?
Yeah, so to prepare, there's obviously a lot of details. We're going to get through a lot of them today, but yeah, Jonathan touched on a great point for this being very valid and a very important part of their issue. But there's other things that they'll need to prepare. They'll need to prepare in terms of getting ready to file their form, right? So that's sometimes obviously done with the help of a securities lawyer. There's many different details we can get into. Did we have one specific that we wanted to go through, Oscar?
Not really, other than just it's not so much specific. It's just making sure that the audience understands that the cap table is part of the corporate part. So what is the corporate part? Well, the corporate part is the minute book. So if you are working with legal counsel, or maybe you don't, when you go to a funding portal, you go to BD, they're going to ask you for this. They're going to say, hey, listen, do you have the following things ready? Do you have your corporate records? And people are going to say, what is that? Well, we need to see your bylaws. We need to see your articles of incorporation. We need to see your information. So why is that important? Because we need to know if you can even issue the securities. I mean, we've seen this so many times. So, people go, oh, I'm ready to go. The company may be ready to go from a marketing perspective, but are you ready to go from a corporate? And I think Jonathan touched on it really interesting there. It will delay your deal. It will delay. Like filing the Form C is one thing, but the people that are helping you file it need to view the information. This is the part that people often miss out on this, is that those that you're relying, usually lawyers or the funding portals, they need to see this information. So it becomes extremely important to view this. So obviously, Jonathan, from the corporate side, is there anything? So we talked the cap table, the bylaws incorporated. What other things from a funding portal are you looking at that are necessary before a company can actually list on your platform?
Yeah, the other big one that we find causes some delays is financials. So there's a current rule. Originally, it was 107,000. You needed a CPA review if you're raising more than that. It's currently through February. Anything under 250,000, you can get away with without a CPA review. But if you are trying to raise more than $250,000, know that you need a CPA review of your company's financials in order to file a crowdfunding campaign. And even in addition, if you're raising less than $250,000, you'll still need company financials. Like that's still information that you need to file that is going to be on a part of your Form C and a part of the public disclosures that you need to make. And so that's one of the things that we find a lot of companies don't have in order is their financials, and especially in order in a way that makes it look, it's organized and people can understand it. Because the reason you need to file financials is that's something investors look at and say, is this company viable? Are they in trouble financially? And so that's the other big piece we find that, like I know I have a company right now that I have their PPM and everything ready to go, but we've been waiting for about 2.5 weeks to launch their campaign because they haven't got me their financials for 2020 yet. And so that's the other big piece that we see people delay their campaigns because of.
Yes, it becomes an important piece in today's market. And this doesn't mean, this is not to scare off the early stage company. Well, I don't have any financial. I mean, there's nothing. No, it's not whether you have anything there or not. It's that you need to get used to the practice of producing them. Yep. Because if you don't, you're neglecting your next element, which is, we're talking about what you need to prepare. There's going to be another session down. I mean, we have 71 more webinars coming up, and they're all in different stages. Whatever you're doing here, trust me, we're just preparing you for what you need to do there, because otherwise your RegCF, raise will be one time, not like others where they do it multiple times. And we can give you the examples of those who do it over and over again. Why? Because they're prepared for the audience. Think about it. It's your money. Somebody wants you to invest in their company. Are you just going to give it to them without looking into the details, seeing what's there? And they don't need to be audited, right? I mean, Jonathan, for RegCF, there is no audited financials, but you need to be prepared.
Yep.
And preparation is critical in determining, what you need to do in order to file your Form C with the regulators, and to also understand what the requirements are. So these are all the little pieces. So we talked about the corporate. Now you understand about financials. Now there are accounting firms. I'll add this part. Obviously, I'll ask you, Jonathan. So there are accounting firms out there that will work with RegCF companies. They know exactly what you need. Their mind is in there, and they're there to help you. Jonathan, are you finding the same in the funding world, Pardo, that you have some partners that can help companies in that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. On both sides. So we talked about the cap table. There's definitely some great cap table management groups out there. And then yes, from an accounting standpoint, we found that a lot of companies that have come to us with a prior accountant, most of them can get connected through there. But we're definitely seeing, especially now that the crowdfunding is starting to take off a little bit, there's more accounting firms dedicating, recognizing that this is, for them, a quick and easy way to provide the accounting services that a startup needs, and still get what they need on the other side. So it's starting to take off a little bit more too.
I was just going to say that we're now talking more about it in depth, because everyone that's here, the regulation is increasing it up to $5 million. I assure you that investors gonna, before raising 50,000, 100,000, there wasn't that much. There was still the due diligence needed, but between 1 and 5 million, you've stepped into a different realm. This is a very different realm. It'll probably be a different type of investor. The accredited investor can now invest. I mean, this is a big win for everyone. The accredited investor can invest in an unlimited amount without going through all that accreditation in your company. And that individual isn't going to just say, oh, just because it's RegCF, they're going to expect as you pointed out, Jonathan, those elements. So obviously, Jillian, you're listening. I know you're taking your legal components as well. So we've talked about the corporate, we've talked about the cap table component part of it, the books, the audit, and obviously, again, coming back to the other elements that the company needs in order to prepare for their offering, again, before they even go live. Look at it, we're still just at the start line.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, in addition to what we've spoken about, I mean, one other component that we've found a lot of times when working with companies is the financial due diligence, right? So ensuring that their financial statements have been audited, as we mentioned, but also ensuring that they've got an understanding of them. What are the projected revenues? The costs of internal costs in their companies, and the profits, in terms of the cash flow and balance state. All of these have to be reviewed and obviously, in some cases with different regs, audited as well. So that's definitely a point that oftentimes where business owners are looking for additional support if they don't have it in house. And I would imagine the other aspects that really stand out are ensuring to have like a business plan ready, making sure that your company has got the full list of a concrete business plan that some of your investors would want to review. So these things are critical in assuring the crowd out there that you've got your T's crossed and your I's dotted.
Yeah, I'll get you to step in on this one for Jonathan, but I just want to be very clear for those listening. You go, wait a minute, I thought you didn't need audited. You do not need audited financial statements. You need them prepared by an accounting firm, notice to reader and all that. But you need to understand this is the path you're walking into. The likelihood that you'll need more capital eventually, you're preparing your financial statements in a route that will get you to a better audit. That's number one. Business plan. A business plan is not mandated to provide to an investor. That is not what it's for. People like Jonathan who needs to know what you know why? Because the funding port is taking on the liability here. They're representing you to the investor base. They need to show them they've done their homework. And it doesn't have to be like 100-page business plan. Maybe the business plan is 2 pages. It is what it is. That's it. There's not, sometimes it's, as you said, it was a startup, right, Jonathan? You probably, I mean, are you asking for that or an executive summary from companies?
Yeah, we always require a business plan. And like specifically a part of the business plan is the use of funds, which is a required filing. But it's exactly what both of you have been saying so far. The thing we try to make our issuers understand is you have to approach this as if you were an investor. So if you were investing in this company, what would you want to see? And so if you're raising $200,000, if I'm going to make an investment in your company, I'm going to want to know what you're doing with the money that I'm investing. And so that's where a strong business plan and the use of funds saying, here's what we're going to do with the money we raise to this campaign is important, because it instills confidence in the investor that says this is a business that they have a plan, they know what they're going to do with the money. And so if I can help them get that money, everything's going to be good to go. And so, yeah, absolutely, business plan and use of funds are, priority, especially for like the public-facing side of the campaign.
Oh, you know what? It's it's amazing how I'm glad we're bringing this up to everybody. So you're hearing it firsthand. So go through that checklist. Again, it's in the book, Equity Crowdfunding 101, but you're hearing it. Be ready, be prepared. Look, we're not trying to scare you off. I keep saying this to you because I want you to just keep putting in the back of your mind. You're becoming entrepreneurs. This is an early stage way to do it. It's made the regulations on the Jobs Act was to make it as simple as possible for you, but the responsibilities do not change. And as you increase the capital raise, believe me, you need to start getting ready for this. We don't want to sugarcoat it for you. We want to give you the truth, because otherwise you're going to get slammed with it. You're going to walk to the door and you're going to go, oh, well, but I read it that it was so easy. It's, it is if you're prepared. So got the financials, we've got the corporate records, the business plan, a critical item. There's lots of templates out there, very simple guides. Most of the funding portals, I'm sure. I don't know, Jonathan, do you guys provide any guide on what a business plan should have from a framework or anything like that?
Yeah, we'll provide examples. We don't have like templates out there, but if a company comes to us and they say, hey, I need help writing a business plan, we have plenty of examples we'll be willing to provide.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So that's the business plan. So now let's walk into the part. Obviously, every one of you that is here, I want to raise my money. Come on, I want to get my money going. Okay, well, now we got to talk about the term sheet. So, this is the one that's a little trickier. This one in RegCF, you need to think about it, right? But you need to have a starting point, meaning you need to know what you're starting with. So obviously this is important. We've experienced it firsthand, not ourselves. We haven't done a RegCF, but we've seen it from our clients. And Julian, you've been working with a few of them that are struggling to try to figure out what model they should use. But there's some considerations companies need to put that in perspective.
Yeah, it's and mind you, I'm learning this space as well, and so it's an area that I'm obviously actively understanding it better and better. But I think that from a term sheet perspective, it's really getting the idea of what the offering is, right? And so it's really listing that out, having a good description of what the offering will entail, and really it's one of the areas that I think it's more important to be very precise, like very descriptive in what's being put forward to the offering, right? I mean, which aspects in terms of Jonathan, I think maybe you might be able to add some color to that area as well.
Yeah, the term sheet, and echoing what Oscar said earlier, there are plenty of examples of term sheets out there. You can even just go to anyone raising a crowdfunding campaign right now and look at their term sheets. But if you've raised money through a vehicle that isn't crowdfunding, you know that when you reach out to a VC or an angel group, the first thing they say to you is, "All right, let me see the term sheet, and we'll go from there." So investors on a large scale, the term sheet is the most important thing for them. And that doesn't change at the crowdfunding scale either, especially because now that accredited investors have unlimited investment options in the crowdfunding space, you're going to get some bigger fish, and that means that your term sheet's going to be really important. So one, going back to what we talked about earlier, understanding what you can offer, which is based on your internal operating bylaws, so that your terms, whatever you're offering, common shares or preferred shares or whatever it is, fit within what you can offer based upon what you've already established. And then secondly, very clearly defining what the minimum investment is, what each share class gets, a summary so that people can understand what each share class means. What the maximum and minimum offering of the entire offering is. So you're trying to raise a minimum of 150, a maximum of 500,000, like just all of the basic details. And honestly, that's kind of where you should start building your campaign out is, here's how much we want to raise and how we're going to do it. You do it with, we want, $100 investors, a bunch of $100 investors, or we want to get some bigger fish. So the minimum invested is $1,000. Those are the kind of things you want to understand, and building out that term sheet, either if it's just you as a solo practitioner with your team, is a great way to kind of go about that process and understand, here's what we want to offer, and building your term sheet is the best way to do it. And that investors are going to look at that term sheet on the back end.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also found too, like one of the areas that I see a lot for even on the investor side is understanding the restrictions, if there are any as well, right? So, if you're making the investment, just being educated, I guess, on the transferability of them. If there's any period that might be your investment might be locked up for. So diving into those details are important, not only from the issuer side of things, but also the investor side. And I guess, just like you mentioned, the minimum, maximums, the maturity, when it comes to maturity, things like that, it also just, clarify things on both ends of the equation.
Yeah, they do. There is another element in RegCF that people need to be aware of. That is, in particular in the United States, there is the 2,000 shareholder rule. So the regulation CF did come up with an exemption to make sure that companies stay within that environment. So this is really important. So for those of you who are listening, the funding portal, as I said, you can go to a funding portal to raise your capital, and they may have a very set structure There are certain portals that only do safes. There are some that do revenue share. So you need to make sure that fits in line with you, where the broker dealer may have more flexibility, but it's not going to change this choice. This choice is an important one that you need to make. And this is part of your journey of capital raising. You need to think about how much money you're going to need throughout the journey of your. So you say, I only need $1 million and this is worth $1 billion company. It's realistically, you have to really understand how much capital you're going to need through maybe 2-3 years, because this structure here is going to make a big impact. Because when you do a regulation CF, if you offer shares and those shares they exceed over 2,000 shareholders, you now trigger Rule 12G. And if you trigger that rule, then you are a full reporting issuer like a public company. And there's not enough money in RegCF for you to maintain that. But the regulators have given you a way to alleviate that. So part of their term sheet is that you can put them in a safe. That's one. Or you can put them in a special purpose vehicle, number two. So there are legal structures that you can follow. You can put them in shares. And we do recommend that to certain companies only if you're going to be doing a Reg A right afterwards. So that's the other thing. So as I say, knowing the journey that you're taking is important for the funding portal to know, or the broker dealer to know, but you got to have the framework of your terms, and they will guide you as this is not going to work, right? So this is the part that makes Regulation CF a little bit more interesting, is that you need to keep that in the back of your mind. Why? Because let's say you are raising $1 million and you want to give everybody an opportunity to invest. Like some funding portals have a minimum of $50. Well, actually, I've seen as low as $10. So you divide $10 into $1 million. How many shareholders is that? And that's a number you have to deal with. So right there, it's definitely over 2,000. So now you need to figure out a way. What is the legal structure that is being utilized so I don't break the rule and I can maintain to go forward? So I'm going to put this on you, Jonathan. I don't know what approach you guys are taking at your funding portal. Are you offering a kind of build your own, or do you have a set structure that you say, okay, you want to raise your money for RegCF, this is the structure so investors understand what they're getting?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of in the middle. It's like a guided build your own. So we found that most of the companies that come to us don't have a tremendous amount of understanding of what a capital raise entails. And I will say we're somewhat unique in this strategy in that I will kind of work with you to figure out a campaign strategy that works well with what you want to do. Whereas there's definitely some portals out there that just say you're either doing a raise like this or you're not, you're going to have to go somewhere else to raise. But to echo what Oscar said, I need to know what you want to do with your money. And so, if a safe note is best for you, I will help you design a safe note based offering. If it's a debt instrument, if you want to use a convertible note or some other sort of revenue sharing agreement, I can help you design that, but only if you tell me what you want first. If you want it to just be equity, again, we can help you design that, but we need to know what the parameters of your equity offering are. And so that's kind of, I can help you design whatever you want your campaign to be, which is one of the beauties of the RegCF, is that you have different pathways to raise the money. But if you don't understand how, like the impacts of each of the different types of investment vehicles and what you want to do with the money, just like Oscar said, this is just the first step. Our crowdfunding campaign, we usually try to say you want to raise about 18 months of runway. So a year and a half, that's it. And so you want to be prepared not only to use that year and a half of runway, but then to be ready for that next step. And so if you come to me and you don't know what you just say, I just need $500,000. I can't help you. There's nothing I can do to help you at that point. You need to understand what the structure of this raise is going to look like in order for me to design your campaign for you.
That's a great point, Jonathan. It's you're probably one of the unique. There's not many portals that allow that flexibility for entrepreneurs because, as I said, there are certain ones, it doesn't matter what dollar amount, this is the instrument, and there's a reason for it. They've trained the audience, so it makes it easier, but the company needs to understand what effect that has on their cap table, meaning even though whether the investor has equity or a safe or SPV, you still need to treat them like a shareholder. You still have a fiduciary duty to report to them, and you need to budget for those kind of things, which most in the past did not. But I assure you, going forward, the SEC will be looking at all of us a little bit harder. So this is the new generation of Regulation CF. So structuring your term sheet. So don't worry so much about what the portals are doing or anything like that. You do have choices, but creating your term sheet is critical. And not only for this race, but as I said, what is your total journey of your capital raise? Because it will determine so much what you can do here on the front at starting point, because everything will predicate that going forward. We've dealt with companies that have done a RegCF, raised $1 million, and immediately closing that, they do a Reg A to raise $50 million. And it's a very smooth transition, very smooth, meaning the crowd safe holders, the safe holders are happy. They're going to be converted to shares. The new ones are coming in, and the company's, it's got 30, 40, 50,000, 100,000 shareholders. It's, and we'll get into that in another part. We don't want to call them shareholders because they're more than that. But for this discussion, we're trying to get you prepared. And so I want to spend the next part. So we talked about the corporate, we talked about due diligence, we talked about the term sheet, we talked about financial statements. Another part that, so I'm going to put you on the spot, Jonathan, and that is, are you also, from a funding portal perspective, are you putting your marketing engine behind it, or are you the companies themselves, the issuer, are they bringing that marketing, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought this up, because that is definitely our unique feature. So our founder he spent 17 years at Procter & Gamble doing marketing. And so he came to this from a marketing perspective. And that's how we kind of treat crowdfunding. Is obviously it's a vehicle for you to raise, investment funds, but it's a marketing. That's what it is. It is marketing. And you are finding, like I said, maybe dozens of investors to hundreds of investors, but you're also touching hundreds more individuals who you're just presenting your product to. And so one thing we do at WonderFund is we provide marketing help. That being said, especially since this is a discussion of what you need to have prepared, we need companies to unlock that first 20 to 25% of the investment. And so if a company comes to us and they want to raise $100,000, our very first question from the marketing side is, well, do you have $20,000 of investment ready to go? Not necessarily ready to go, but do you have friends and family who are interested in investing once this is live? Because if your mom and your brother and your friends aren't going to put in 20% of the campaign, we can't then bring in the 80% that's left over. And so we will turn on a marketing vehicle using whatever is best, SEO, Facebook ads. Before COVID, we were doing live presentations to help you drive this. But that only happens if you bring us, an email list of people you think might be invested in. If you say, yeah, I've got 5 or 6 people lined up right away, day one, they're going to put in a couple $1,000s. Because if someone comes to the website and they say you're trying to raise $500,000 and you have $1,000 of investment, they're not going to pay attention to your campaign. They're not interested. And what's great is another change in the rules that we really appreciate that'll help this is the testing the water change that just came about. So that we're putting in some procedures for testing the water that will allow you to reach out to people and say, hey, I might be raising money through a crowdfunding campaign. Would you be interested? And that's something that we need the issuers to do themselves, build out that email list so that day one, when your campaign goes live, we can email 500 people and say, hey, you said you're interested, let's go.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was just gonna say right here is that, yeah, we generally have that similar notion of 25-30% rule of having that capital set aside ready for, the raise. And so, yeah, I think you're gonna say the same, Oscar.
No, yeah, I'm glad to hear it because people need to be reminded that capital raising requires working with COVID-19. Look how we're holding these events. At KoreConnex, we've been doing core summits now for the last year and some. We pivoted online to bring education to reach an audience, to educate 5, 10, 20, 100. It doesn't matter. The point is one at a time to give you the tools that you need so you're prepared. So same thing you're going to need to do to reach out to do advertising. And I'm glad to hear this because people go, oh, he's a new funding portal, the other ones don't do it. I guarantee you they all do. In fact, some of them are very specific even to the dollar amount. And so that just tells you even the most mature platforms, WeFunder, Republics, even the ones that have been up there for the last 4 or 5 years, each one of them require you to hit a certain threshold before they'll get behind it. So what Jonathan's team is doing is no different. And again, it's like everything we've always said. It's everybody working together. You got to bring in your first crowd. When you read this book, the Equity Crowdfunding 101, you're going to see it. It talks about your first crowd. Who's your first crowd? The people you already know. If they really love your product, you got to bring it to the table, and you got to, because that's how it all works, right? It works this way, and you're going to be successful when you can. It's not about hoarding or anything like that, or that you're giving away something. You're not. You're trying to get something and let the professionals help you to get your capital raise. So this has been very important, going through that list and making sure that, so we got the corporate, getting your minute book ready. Even if you're a new startup, they'll give you a whole bunch of records. You'll have your cap table in there, and there are cap table tools which will make you available, of course. And we'll let Jonathan know about that as well. Financial diligence, making sure that even though you don't need audited financial statements, you understand the fact that you need to have them structured by an accountant and understand what they mean. And getting a business plan and working with Jonathan or any advisor to give you the basics of it, putting that together, and then working on your term sheet, right? And putting together what you feel is not just for this round, but for all future rounds. And then, of course, your marketing. Budget for that properly. Okay, so the budget is something that we're getting asked a lot now. It came out the other day, Oscar, how much money should we be budgeting? That's a great question. So, the legals, I will tell you right now that the lawyers are going to charge anywhere between $3,500 to $5,000, and they're looking to build a relationship with you. Some of the funding portals do it. I don't want to put you on the spot, Jonathan, but does your company offer that, or are you offsetting it to a lawyer?
So yeah, we do some of the legal work. So I draft the private policy, the PPM, and we do the Form C filing. We do take power of attorney in order to do like the Edgar filings, but we will not design your operating agreements. If you're doing an SPV, we will not set up the SPV for you. So there's some legal work that we can do for you, but you're still probably going to want to find an attorney, especially for down the road. Like you said, they're building a relationship with you, so they're probably willing to put in the work and only charge you $3,000 to $5,000, like Oscar said, to do like that leg work, hoping that down the road when you're raising 10, 15, even upwards of $50 million, that's when they're going to get some more fees, and you're definitely going to need a legal attorney at that point.
It is a great point. I mean, we're breaking it down. If people go, okay, Oscar, what's from a percentage? It's anywhere between 15 to 18, 20%. That's realistic. And with COVID-19, and part of that money, I just need all of you here that are listening in, most of the money is marketing. It's not going to be legals. It's not going to be accounting. It's getting the eyeballs, the attention to an audience to come in. And the same thing is for any other regulation. Trust me. I mean, regulation CF is no different than others. The funding portals do have registered users. But again, listen carefully to what you are getting into, is that they're telling you that you need to come in for the first part. So you're going to need to spend it or already have it to make it worth for everyone. So The budget is going to be a variable. It's going to be different for every type of company. But if you budget, $1 million, okay, go, you're going to spend between 15, 20% overall, legal, accounting, getting your business plan, social media, all of that, and including the first set of investors to, and this is no different than raising money, the traditional method, whether you go through LinkedIn or some sort of angel group or anything like that. There's always going to be a cost of raising capital along the way. So, sorry, Jonathan.
Yeah, and we actually have, there was a really good study by I think it's CAA, Capitalization Association of America, that they just put out. And so they found that for $100,000, you can expect a total budget for the campaign, and this covers marketing, legal, everything, of about $5,000. The average campaign, which was $225,000, you could expect a cost of about $12,000. So right where Oscar's saying, and then upwards for companies that raised $1 million, they had a budget of about $56,000 to get the campaign launched. So yeah, at a minimum, you're going to want to have at least about $5,000 in capital available to pay to get the campaign launched. And then, like Oscar said, it's variable depending on where you go from there.
That's perfect. Thank you, Jonathan. All right. So as we said, 45 minutes, we talk, you hear us speak. We give you an opportunity here now to put up your hand, and it looks like Terrence has got a question for us. So Terrence, we're going to turn it on so you can ask your question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're on, Terrence.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the information. I'd like to know, how do we connect to your companies if we want to engage your companies to help us put this together?
So Jonathan, did you hear that clearly?
Oh, that's for me. So you can go to our website, wonderfund.co. Don't type that extra M, it's just .co. And we have FAQs on there, and there's a side for investors and a side for issuers. So as an issuer, you can go in and indicate that you're interested, and we have a little pre-due diligence process where you can kind of give us some of the information about your company and what you're looking to do. You can also email me. It's Jonathan, how it's spelled there, JONATHON @wonderfund.co. And you can just say, hey, I'm interested in getting some more information about becoming an issuer.
That's perfect. Thank you, Jonathan. Are there any other questions? There's a few people there. Just all you got to do is click the raise hand if you have questions. So I'll be keeping an eye there, but I'll also be bringing up some other elements of, preparing for your regulation crowdfunding. So one of the things that obviously you're going to be spending money with a lot of different partners. As you choose your partners, whether it's the funding portal, the lawyers, the auditors, the marketing firms, and all that, this is your first crowd, including your existing shareholders, your family members, your advisors, employees, everybody. This is your first crowd. If you're walking into this journey, you need to understand the power of the crowd. If they're not behind you, I assure you, it's going to get even tougher for you on the other side. So make sure that inner crowd you have is going to be there supporting you, bringing it forward to make sure you have a successful raise. That's the key to all of it. Marketing can thrive on that if you have customers, even if it's one. That could be if you have an advisor or you have an existing shareholder that's willing to put their name out there and support you and be, you're saying this and they're saying it as well. It's going to be part of it. So you have some other soft items that often is not talked about because we just talked about preparation, regulatory, and all that. But one of the things I firmly believe in, and when I've seen the success, is those who understand how harness the crowd will be more successful down the line in doing their capital raising. Bringing that first crowd is everything. You were going to say something, Julian. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I was actually going to go back to an earlier point that we touched on at a high level, is that all of this is really geared towards the journey that the company, the issue is going to be on, right? And the more that it can be complete, the more that it can be well thought out and planned. That also translates to, I would say, what we're seeing is really investor confidence in the offering. As the space also has been maturing, the investors also mature, and those investors that are successfully investing in the right types of companies and seeing the opportunities are the ones that have prepared and really done their due diligence through all these steps. So definitely encourage everybody to really put that effort behind that, because that in addition to your great products and services and solutions that you're offering to the market is that complete package, right? The last point I'll make on that is also the communication aspect. So really, being proactive rather than reactive with your potential investors and shareholders. It just promotes that sense of well-being. You're nurturing those that have invested in your company. So that's a few thoughts there.
Yeah, we're adding a little bit more to it, talking a little bit about the shareholder part. There are going to be some webinars that are going to be very specific about the crowd itself. How do you nurture it? Why most companies don't even call them shareholders. I mean, that's kind of the teaser for you there, because we believe that this is a journey, and you're going to start this journey the right way. It's meant to help any stage of company. We've seen it. Look, in the last 4 years, there have been over almost nearly 3,000 companies that you are now coming into. 3,000. So that's great. Success is there. They've raised, almost $1 billion in capital. They've created jobs, and we've seen companies raise $50,000 and they've been able to get their business going. Others have raised $1 million and a whole bunch in between. So what is important though is that we recognize that all of them came prepared responsibly, which is what we're trying to help you here today. So, all right. So I'm just going to reach out one more time. If any of the attendees have any questions, don't be shy. There's no any particular question that may help you with your RegCF. One thing I will tell you is, don't worry, we'll be reaching out to you. You'll have the contact details for Jonathan as well. We will make available to you the book on Equity Crowdfunding 101 to assist you with your capital raise, so you can become successful in understanding it. The more prepared you are, the more successful you will become. And that is really our entire goal. I want to thank Jonathan this afternoon. Thank you so much. It's great to finally meet you.
Yeah, thank you.
Looking forward to learning more about what you guys are doing at WonderFund. And then, of course, my colleague, Jillian Phibbs. So from all of us, if you are going to join us, we have another webinar at 3:30 this afternoon. If you're not already registered, this is part of our series. The next one is why everyone benefits from Regulation CF. So this is, again, these are bits and pieces. All of it is around, you got to understand the theory behind, and it's working. It's finally working. 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, we were talking about it like it's theoretical. Today, it's practical. We can give you the examples. You can see it. It starts here, and then it just keeps moving forward. So have a great week. We hope to see you again soon. And thank you very much for everyone's time. Take care.
Thank you very much.